It happened on a Monday morning, the kind of morning where the city looked like it had been dipped in gold by the sunrise. And the glass walls of the towering Verontech headquarters glowed like freshly polished diamonds. Executives hurried through the entrance with their badges flashing, assistants juggling coffees, and interns trying to look more important than they felt. But the center of the entrance, the revolving heart of the corporate giant, belonged to one man everyone overlooked. A quiet black security guard named Rainn. Most people barely spoke to him except when they needed to sign in a guest or complain about parking. And Malik, tall, broad-shouldered, with a calm expression that almost never changed, simply nodded and did his job, never asking for anything. What no one knew was that beneath his simple uniform and silence lived a mind sharper than most people in the building. But that truth stayed hidden until the day the CEO himself pushed him too far. As you're watching this, tell me where in the world you're watching from. Drop your country or city in the comments. And if you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe because more emotional and shocking stories are coming. The CEO, Adrian Veron, was not a man known for gentleness. He walked like the world belonged to him because for the most part it did. With slicked-back silver hair, a perfectly tailored suit, and a phone pressed to his ear like a permanent accessory. Adrian was the kind of man who expected perfection and considered anything less an insult. That morning, he stepped out of his glossy black car, slammed the door, and stormed toward the entrance while shouting into his phone. "No, no, no. Did you seriously mess up the Madrid contract again?" He roared, the veins in his neck pulsing. Employees scattered like pigeons, startled by a closing door. He barely noticed the people bowing their heads as he passed. But he did notice Malik because Malik was the only one who didn't flinch. When the CEO reached the checkpoint, he realized he had forgotten his ID badge, a rare mistake. He patted his pockets, frowned, then turned his glare toward Malik. "Open the gate," he demanded. Malik remained calm. "Sir, I need to scan your ID." Adrian snapped, "You know who I am. I own this building." Malik nodded respectfully. "Yes, sir, but the system won't open without an ID. Please, give me your name and I'll verify you manually." Adrian scoffed loudly. "My name? What are you, stupid?" "Everybody knows me." People nearby winced. Malik didn't. He simply typed calmly. "Full name, sir?" "It's policy." Adrian threw up his hands dramatically. "Unbelievable. What's the point of hiring security if they can't recognize the CEO of the entire company?" Malik responded softly, "It's because I take my job seriously, sir." And for some reason, that sentence triggered Adrian more than the refusal. "Take your job seriously?" Adrian sneered. "Your job is to stand there and look intimidating. It's not complicated." Malik swallowed the sting. Adrian smirked, waved off his assistant, and continued mocking him. "Honestly, security guards don't need brains. They just need muscles. And you," he paused, pointing at Malik's uniform, "are a perfect example of that." The lobby fell silent. Every eye watched. Malik forced a small professional smile. Though inside he felt something crack, a quiet pain he had learned to bury over the years. Finally, an assistant brought Adrian's spare ID, and the CEO marched inside, still muttering insults. Malik exhaled slowly and returned to his post, but the humiliation echoed in his mind. People had judged him his whole life by his skin, his job, his silence. But they never knew what he knew, never imagined what he had learned through years of moving from country to country before life forced him into simpler work. 11 languages. 11. And he spoke each with a precision that would make professors blush. But he stayed silent. Because the world had taught him that sometimes showing your brilliance only made people look for new ways to diminish you. Later that afternoon, everything changed. The company was preparing for a major international conference call with global partners from Japan, Germany, Italy, Nigeria, Brazil, and more. Translators had been hired. Interpreters stationed. Everything carefully scheduled. But technology, as it often does, betrayed them at the worst possible moment. The entire translation system crashed 10 minutes before the biggest deal Verontech had ever pursued. Panic spread through the 50th floor boardroom like wildfire. Executives scrambled, tech workers whispered frantically, and Adrian, red-faced and furious, barked orders that no one could fulfill. "Fix it," he shouted. "We cannot afford to look incompetent. We need interpreters now." "Sir," an assistant stammered, "the backup translators are stuck in traffic. The call starts in 2 minutes." Adrian kicked a chair. 2 minutes. 2 minutes and half the world will be listening. We need a miracle. And as fate would have it, the miracle was standing calmly 49 floors below, scanning visitor badges. A junior employee who often chatted with Malik rushed into the boardroom, breathless. "Sir, I think there's someone who can help." Adrian spun around. "Who?" "Malik, the security guard." Laughter burst across the room. Adrian stared coldly. "Is this a joke?" "No, sir," the junior employee insisted. "He speaks multiple languages." "How many?" Adrian snapped. I'm not sure, but I've heard him switch between at least 3, fluently." Adrian threw up his hands. "Fine, bring him. If he can actually help, good. If not, you're fired." The junior employee sprinted out, raced into the lobby, and grabbed Malik by the arm. "Malik, you have to come now. The CEO needs you." Malik blinked. "The CEO? Yes, please. Just come." Malik followed up the elevator, unaware that he was walking into a room full of tension, arrogance, and disbelief. When he stepped into the boardroom, the executive stared at him like he had wandered into the wrong movie. Adrian crossed his arms. "You, the security guard. They tell me you speak languages?" Malik shifted nervously. "Yes, sir." "A few," Adrian scoffed loudly. "A few? Wonderful. Great. We have 10 different nations on this call. Do you speak Japanese?" Malik nodded. "Hi, Sukoshi Hanasamasu." "Yes, I can speak a little." The room froze. Adrian blinked twice. "German." Malik replied, "Ja, ich kann Deutsch sprechen." "Yes, I can speak German." Murmurs spread across the room. "Italian?" "Signor, parlo anche italiano." "Yes, sir." "I also speak Italian." "Portuguese?" "Sim, EU, falo Portuguese fluentment." "Yes, I speak Portuguese fluently." "French?" "Oui, monsieur. G parle, TRS, bien franque." "Yes, sir." "I speak French very well." "Arabic?" "Nem, atakalamu Arabia?" "Yes, I speak Arabic." The room fell absolutely silent. Adrian's mouth opened slightly, the first time anyone had seen him speechless. "How? How many languages do you speak?" Malik hesitated, then said quietly, 11. The boardroom exploded in whispers. Adrian stared at him, color draining from his face. All morning he had mocked this man, insulted him, called him stupid, and now the fate of the biggest deal in company history rested on his shoulders. The irony tasted bitter. With a trembling voice, Adrian finally said, Can you help us?" Malik nodded, though inside he felt a satisfaction he would never express aloud. "Of course, sir. I'll do my best." As the screens lit up with faces from around the world, the room braced itself. And when Malik began speaking, switching between languages with flawless ease, accents perfect, tones smooth and confident, something remarkable happened. The entire world, every executive, every representative, every anxious interpreter fell silent, awestruck by the security guard no one had ever truly seen. When the meeting ended in thunderous applause from every screen around the world, Malik stood quietly in the center of the boardroom, unsure of how to react as executives exchanged stunned glances and whispered to one another about the security guard, who had just saved the biggest deal in company history. Adrian Varan, still rattled and embarrassed from how effortlessly Malik had switched between languages, muttered a stiff thank you and dismissed him as if the entire miracle were a minor inconvenience. Malik simply nodded and returned to the lobby, where he resumed scanning badges as though nothing extraordinary had happened. But word of his performance spread through the building like wildfire. Employees who had never spoken more than a rushed greeting suddenly lingered by the desk to ask how many languages he really spoke. Interns whispered excitedly as they passed. And even the cafeteria cashier gave him free coffee with an admiring grin. The man who had become invisible for years was suddenly the center of everyone's curiosity and respect, everyone except Adrian. The CEO avoided his gaze each morning, muttering tight greetings, the kind that didn't quite reach the heart. But while Adrian tried to pretend nothing had changed, the board of directors had seen enough to know. The company could no longer afford to overlook the brilliance that had been standing silently at its doors for years. So a week later, Malik received a message instructing him to report to the 51st floor. A place so far from the lobby, it felt like crossing into another world. There, he found the entire senior leadership team waiting for him, minus the CEO. They invited him to sit. But he remained standing out of habit, hands clasped in front of him. The senior director, a sharp-eyed woman with a voice steady enough to command any room, explained that the board wanted to offer him a new role, head of cultural communications and international relations. A position that would allow him to use his linguistic skills to guide international projects, train departments in cross-cultural etiquette, and personally oversee global partnerships. Malik was shocked. He had expected maybe a thank you email, not an executive-level job. When they asked about his background, he told them softly about his mother, a diplomat who had filled his childhood with travel, languages, and the belief that communication was the bridge to everything. After she passed, life had forced him to abandon his degrees in linguistics and international relations and take whatever work he could find, eventually leading him to the lobby of Rainn Tech. By the time he finished speaking, several executives looked genuinely moved, and one even wiped away a tear. The director told him the decision to promote him had been unanimous, almost unanimous, and Malik immediately understood who had objected. Still, he accepted the offer with gratitude. He insisted he didn't want anything that would create chaos within the company. The director assured him the board would handle the rest. The next morning, Adrian summoned Malik to his private office, pacing like a man preparing for battle. He accused Malik of enjoying the sudden praise of embarrassing the CEO in front of his own board. Malik remained calm, saying he had only done what was necessary. Adrian snapped that a security guard could never be an executive, that people needed to stay in their lane. But Malik replied gently that lanes only existed when people refused to open new roads. He said he had taken insults for years without responding because the job mattered. But being silent did not mean being incapable. The truth struck Adrian so hard he fell quiet, slumping into his chair as though the weight of his own behavior had finally cornered him. When Malik said the company had grown stronger because he had chosen to help, it's not because he wanted to prove anything, Adrian couldn't look at him. Eventually, the CEO reached into a drawer, signed the promotion papers with a stiff hand, and pushed them toward Malik. "You won," he muttered. Malik shook his head and told him quietly that this was not about winning, it was about finally being seen. Then he left the office without another word, leaving Adrian in the heavy silence of sudden self-awareness. In the months that followed, Rainn Tech transformed. With Malik now leading international communication efforts, cultural misunderstandings evaporated, major global projects accelerated, and employees across departments learned to work more respectfully and thoughtfully. Investors praised the company's fresh direction, and leaders from around the world remarked that dealings with Rainn Tech had never been smoother. Malik's new office overlooked the city, sunlight pouring through the glass walls every morning the way it once had when he stood alone in the lobby. On his desk, he kept only 3 items: a framed photo of his mother, a notebook filled with ideas for future initiatives, and his old security badge encased in glass, a reminder of where he had come from and how far unseen strength could carry a person. One afternoon, as he prepared for a meeting with a group of unpartners, there was a soft knock at his door. Adrian entered, not with his usual swagger, but with the hesitant posture of a man who had spent months reflecting on his mistakes. He asked if he could come in, and Malik smiled, allowing him inside. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Adrian cleared his throat and said quietly that Malik had changed the company in ways he could never have imagined that he had opened doors Adrian didn't even know were closed. He said he owed Malik an apology, a real one. Malik nodded and told him that accepting apologies took time, but that he appreciated the honesty. Adrian gave a small, genuine nod before leaving. No longer the man who believed the world belonged to him, but someone willing to learn. As the door closed again, Malik returned to the window, watching the city glow under another golden sunrise. For the first time in his life, he felt the world looking back with recognition, not judgment. He had spent years doing his job quietly, believing that brilliance needed hiding to stay safe. But now he understood something deeper. Once your light reaches people, they cannot pretend they haven't seen it. And now, at last, everyone saw Malik not as a guard. Not as a background figure, but as the man who changed everything simply by stepping forward when the moment called for him. And they never forgot him again.